moving forward. So the question I ask people when they first come in is, first of all, what brings you here today, but also what would you do if you can't fail? And that question is often based on fears or based on insecurities that generally bring people to the therapy room, but not just that, but just limiting beliefs that get in the way of their own success and happiness. So most of us think that if we make more money and if business is more successful, we have the perfect relationship, we lose weight, then we will be happy. But we know that studies have shown that past a certain point when your needs are taken care of, and that could be a roof over your head, food on the table, clothes behind your back, I mean, I'm simplifying that, but generally if there is all of those things covered and there is an element of safety, then there is only a certain degree that money will add to happiness, and it doesn't add any more value past a certain point. So I believe that number here in Australia is like about 120k, which is not obviously like, you know, peanuts, but it's also not millions and millions of dollars. They were saying that if you are earning past a certain point, then the actual level of happiness or quality of life is not really going to change much. So it all comes down to your mindset, and essentially like the quality of your relationships define the quality of your life. So The Happiness Trap, for example, by Russ Harris, is a very popular seminal book around happiness that postulates that the harder we try to be happy, the more unpleasant feelings we create, because we end up chasing happiness. So we tend to focus as human beings to focus on what we don't have. This is just the way that neuroscience is geared, is like we're there to identify lack or danger. So we focus on what we don't have rather than what we have. And we also tend to focus, as humans, focus on what we cannot control. We obsess about that, thinking we can change things, versus the things that we have power over. So all of that creates very much a society that can either live in the past or the future, but not in the present. So that is the key problem that most people in mindfulness space, in the research space of happiness, in thriving, in meditation, will always talk about being in the here and now, because we rarely live there. So if you are preoccupied with the past, you're more likely to be depressed. If you're preoccupied with the future, you're more likely to be anxious. And that the conscious mind only accounts for 5% of our brain. So what that means, the subconscious is 95%. So it doesn't really matter with the mantras that you say to yourself again and again. If you don't have a lived experience of that, then your subconscious will always sabotage what you want for life. So I can say, I want to be healthy, but what is the resistance? Why do I make excuses when it's time to go to the gym? Or why do I fail at being able to make healthy choices for food, right? It might be because I feel that if I lose weight, there might be an expectation that X, Y, Z, right? So a lot of the subconscious stuff defines some of the limitations that are holding us back. So the reason for Envision, which is why we're here today, is this retreat that I created for very much a specific cohort of people, that this is a gap in the market where there has to be an in-between for people that are committed to self-development, committed to their self-development, working at certain things, but without the rigorous clinical kind of detox rehab kind of setting. So here in Australia, you currently have retreats that are run by, say, yoga teachers or life coaches, sometimes even breath work, which is fantastic because, you know, you probably do detox, you eat really well, 5 days, you exercise every day, takes you away from your day-to-day routine. But there isn't enough, I'd say, grit in the work while you're there. And so what that means is that I feel good while I'm there, I feel good 5 days after I come back from the retreat, but then you're probably likely, with the subconscious mind taking over, going back to the way that it was. And that's why, you know, that sometimes it doesn't really have any long-term benefits with some of the retreats that people attend. And then on the other hand, on the other side of the spectrum, you also get the detox with the doctors and the clinicians, but they're very much, like I said, a very horrible hospital-like setting. So the vision for Envision is to create an immersive experience designed to create breakthroughs using physical, emotional, and psychological tools that are backed by science. So I've always wanted to do it with fellow colleagues that, you know, have science as a grounded practice, and then also incorporate all the other things and the latest research into it. So it's not just like your feel-good woo-woo. We want you to actually get something out of it. Now, who's seen 9 Perfect Strangers? Yeah. Well, it's actually quite controversial, because apart from the part that there is a lot of like microdosing that goes on, and not that that's illegal in some countries, it's pretty much happening already. It's a psychedelic drugs, yeah. So, but it's, you know, I don't know anything about that, so I'm not going to comment on that. But the whole idea, and when I was watching it, is actually done really well, because it's the way that the therapies were set up, the way that they've asked the questions. It's very much written as if it would be a retreat, and like, you know, they have pretty good writers now these days, that they try to make it as close to the real thing as possible.